If I have learned anything about the vibration of money, is that it is an avoidant. It is an avoidant energy, and if you try to chase it too much, it's gonna run away from you. So when I start like working and striving because of the money, like if I start posting content specifically out of scarcity, like I need the money, I need the clients, I need da. Or if I'm going out to coffee or to breakfast or to get food and I'm looking at the price tags, if I'm obsessively looking at money and focusing on money, it runs away from me. But if I go to the grocery store and I don't look at the price tags of things, my balance is actually probably $100 cheaper than it is when I'm looking at the price tags of things. And when I post content just because I love to post this and it makes me feel good and I'm not thinking about the financial income of that, then money starts pouring in for me. When you try to chase money, when you fixate on getting money too much, if you are focused on like the scarcity, like extreme budgeting, right? It's gonna run away from you. If you learn to relax a little bit and trust it a little bit, I know that's really hard if you have like poverty mindset, or if you live in poverty. So like find it in little ways, right? Like find little places where you can relax a little bit, because money has to be spent to be given. Like you can't hold on to all of your money and expect more to come in. It has to be exchanged evenly. And when you stress about it, it's like your ex-boyfriend and it just runs a fucking away. So try to find little ways where you can kind of relax into your income and outcome a little bit, and start saying thank you every time you spend money and every time you get money. Because when you spend money on something, you're getting something in exchange and it's going to do something for you, whether it's superficial or if it's actually like essential for your health and your wellness and whatnot. Doing that has totally changed the game and money for me, and I realize that I'm literally pushing it away when I start to do that. I switched that and money started flowing into me a lot easier.
Hello everyone, it's Emmanuel Cooke. Today we will be reacting to a new video, and I hope that you guys enjoy the video.
My name is Dom, and I'm a 28-year-old remote software engineer living in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Today, I'm going to share 3 tips on how I got out of debt fast as a new grad at the tender age of 22. These 3 tips directly resulted in me being able to dig myself out of $15,000 of consumer credit card debt in 6 months. I'm going to share these tips with you while I go for a walk because it is way too nice of a day here in D.C. for me to be indoors. Let me first preface these tips by saying that how quickly you can pull yourself out of debt is directly proportionate to how much debt you have and also how much income each month you can put towards paying off debt. Tip number 1 for me was to use the snowball method of debt repayment rather than the avalanche method. It's literally so pretty outside. The avalanche method is generally considered the more financially savvy way to attack debt because it has you attacking your debt with the highest interest rate first, which saves you more money in the long run. My highest interest debt happened to be my highest amount debt as well. So it took me a long time to really chip away at that debt. I ended up just getting discouraged at a certain point and I just didn't really make any progress. When I ended up switching to the snowball method, it was just really motivating and satisfying to see debts being cleared immediately. My lowest credit card debt at the time was a maxed out card that was like $500. I was able to wipe that out in 1 month. The second tip that I used was to create a budget, and a very bare bones budget, meaning that I listed all of the bills and all of the obligations that I had each month, and I really didn't budget for anything outside of that. I kind of like lowered my entertainment budget, my eating out and takeout, all those like extras. I kept that to a very bare minimum, and I put every extra penny that I had towards my debt snowball each month. I will definitely be making TikToks in the future on how to start budgeting and how to create a budget personalized to you and your income. My last tip would be to really get into free or cheap hobbies. The goal here is to keep yourself preoccupied because for me at least, I know that I start spending money when I'm bored. More money that I'm spending on like entertainment or going out and things like that, that's less money that I can be putting towards my debt. Preferably, you want to get into some more like budget-friendly hobbies, things like hiking. Camping can be a really good budget hobby, especially after the initial investment of camping equipment. I am a nerd, so I love playing board games and I play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends, and those are all free. Video games is another hobby that's like pretty cheap for me. I know it can be kind of expensive expensive to pay like $60 for the new Assassin's Creed game. But for me, that's a good investment because that's $60 up front, but it takes me forever to like 100% games. So that's like guaranteed entertainment for like the next 2 years. Those are my tips for how to get out of debt very quick. If you guys have any tips that helped you get out of debt, please leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them.
Number one question on this video is how did we pay off $20,000 worth of credit card debt? If you don't know, my husband and I started off with $52,000 worth of credit card debt at the beginning of February, and now we are down to about $29,000 worth of credit card debt a few months later. Just jumping straight into it, you have to be ready. So first thing is mindset. And I will always say this is your first step. You have to be ready to make those changes. No matter which way you take with paying off your debt, you have to be mentally ready to make sacrifices, to improve your money habits, to change your lifestyle. Like, you have to be ready to make those changes. Second biggest thing, learn how to budget. I know that seems so juvenile, but there are so many adults who have never budgeted in their life and don't even know where to start when it comes to budgeting. Trust me, I get the DMs. They don't even know where to start, and it just seems like gibberish when they look at a budget template or when they try to write out their budget. I understand. We barely started budgeting this year to help ourselves get out of debt. Something that really helped me, obviously, was starting to share our journey here on TikTok. And because of that, so many people had given really good recommendations of what to look into when it came to helping with our debt. So here's a few things that we were told. Obviously, the biggest one was bankruptcy, to file bankruptcy. We didn't really look into it. We also just didn't really want to go that route. Another suggestion that some of my friends have done is to call up your credit card company and ask if they can help you out by lowering that interest rate. You have to agree to what they tell you first in order to take on that offer. So just make sure it's something that you actually agree with. Getting a HELOC on our mortgage, again, no, we were not educated enough to go that route. Another suggestion was going through I don't know what they're called, like a credit restoration company. I don't know, something like that. But I had heard a lot of bad experiences from people at that point already, and people just saying not to do that. So we also did not take that route. For us, the most feasible suggestion at the time was getting 0% balance transfer cards. And so we had to make some financial moves in order to do that. The way that we went about it, I took on some of the debt from my husband's name and put it into my name. This way, everything that was already on the credit cards could then be transferred over to 0% interest cards. So will this work for everybody? Probably not, but this is what we did. Once that was taken care of, we also started looking into a lower interest rate for the personal loan that we had. So a couple of years ago, we had already done a debt consolidation loan, which just bit us in the ass because we ended up running up those credit cards, those empty balance credit cards again. And so our debt basically doubled, honestly. So the next biggest thing was to get a lower interest personal loan. So those were the two major moves that we did, and the 0% balance transfer cards have helped us so much. Now, after all of those got into place, the extra streams of income started to roll in, which has really helped our momentum. And it's just like, now it really is like this big snowball effect, and we are able to pay off a lot each month, and that's what our goal is now. I suggest looking into what you think will work best for you, your situation, and your family. I hope this helps. Please let me know if you have any other questions. You are not alone in this journey. I know it feels so isolating, but you're not alone. I promise you, you got this. Come up with a plan and stick to it, and you will see progress. Love you, bye.
Okay, you asked, and I'm going to tell you how I paid off over $120,000 of debt. Here we go. So first off, it took me 5 years to pay off over $100,000 of debt. So this started in 2016 and I became debt free in 2021. I ended up getting back in debt, but next month I will be debt free again, which I will pay off $20,000, which is why I've said I paid off over $120,000. Really, the first step is a mindset shift. I just didn't think that I was a person who could handle money. Like, my identity was literally, I'm bad with money. And it wasn't until I decided to say, like, okay, that is how it's been, but that's not how it has to be, that things really started to change. So I really had to think of myself as something different than what I had identified with for so long. I also had to get real about how much debt I was in. Like, I think it's so important to know your numbers. And oftentimes we think like out of sight, out of mind. And that is just literally never going to help you in your finances. So I went in one day and I sat down and I wrote down everything that I owed. I did every bill. I did every interest that tied to a credit card. Like, I just did a whole overhaul and learned how much of debt I was in and like when are like my actual due dates for things. The next thing I did was literally flooded my brain with just knowledge and testimonies about people getting out of debt and creating wealth. Like, there's a verse in the Bible that says people perish for the lack of knowledge. And my bills, my bank account was literally perishing, okay? Because I didn't know anything about money. My parents didn't teach me about money. They only taught me to save, but that was it. They didn't teach me how to manage or steward my finances in a way that would get me out of debt, that wouldn't even put me in debt in the first place. So I really had to just be inspired by stories and learning knowledge about money. Number 3, I would say raise your income, okay? This is easier said than done. And for me at first, because when I first started out, I was literally making like $30,000. I was not making a lot. But one thing I did in addition to my W-2 job was I had side jobs. Like, literally I was selling purses at Michael Kors, okay? This is when I started photography and I started to sell like photo shoots for really cheap. I was just doing anything to add extra income. And that's the thing that people don't tell you. Like, you're going to have to grind it out for a little while to pay off debt if you don't have the income. You're going to have to find ways to make it. And that may mean getting an extra job. Number 4, I would say, is I committed. Like, this is something I committed to. I think when I first started the journey, I had hit rock bottom. Like, I was tired of faking it. I was tired of missing bills and payments. And so I committed to it for as long as it was going to take. And the first time it took 5 years. And here I am doing it again. And this time it didn't take me as long because I've since raised my income, because that was like 8 years ago, which is wild. But now, in 2024, it only took me 6 months to pay off $20,000, which is a blessing. But even then, like, it took a commitment. It took having y'all's word y'all hate the most, a budget, and just a lot of inspiration. So maybe I'll do this in like a more organized way, but that was like the gist of it for the most part.
Story time. About 7 years ago, I had $52,000 in credit card debt, $28,000 in student loans, an $18,000 car note, and an $18,000 loan on my 401k. If you're good at math, you're gonna know we're talking 6 figures of debt and a shit ton of stress. How did I get out of this debt? Well, I can't really give a straightforward answer because it was a mix of accidental smart money decisions and luck. This was before my financial literacy era when I actually learned how to manage money. So just assume I didn't know shit. Long story short, I saved up to buy a condo. It went up in value by 40% in 3 years, and I sold it for $210,000 of profit without having to pay any capital gains taxes. Accidental smart money decision number 1, I bought a condo not because I thought it'd be a good investment, but because I thought that being a homeowner was the main goal that we're all supposed to accomplish. Accidental money decision number 2, I sold it 3 years later, not because I planned to, but because I almost got laid off and I was freaking out about how to make the mortgage payment. Now, the luck part of it. I bought at the right time and sold at the right time, And because I lived in this condo for over 2 years, I qualified for what's known as the IRS's Section 121 exclusion, which means that as a single person, I didn't have to pay capital gains taxes on the entire profit because it was under $250,000. All that said, let me tell you, do not do what I did. I took an insane amount of risk by buying a condo that I could barely afford. I clearly had bad money management skills the way I racked up that much debt, and there was no way to predict those types of investment gains on the home. Instead, to get out of debt, you should come up with a debt payoff plan like the debt snowball or debt avalanche method and keep learning about personal finance. Trust me, being financially illiterate was not worth the stress.
Pay off all my debt in a year. This is exactly the steps that I would take, and this is coming from someone who already paid off $85,000 worth of debt. The very first thing that I would do is save money first. Now, I know this sounds a little counterintuitive to save money before you pay off debt, but so many people try to pay off debt with $0 saved. That's probably the most common mistake that I see people making. If you try to pay off debt with no money saved, all that's going to happen is something unexpected is going to come up, because something unexpected always comes up. And all the money that you thought was going to be able to go toward debt is actually going to have to go to that unexpected expense. Or if the unexpected expense is more money than you were going to put toward debt, you're going to have to go further into debt to pay for that. So your very first goal before you even think about putting a single extra penny toward your debt is to save at least a month of expenses. So this is like the cost of your rent or your mortgage, your groceries, your gas, your car, your childcare, everything that you need to pay for on a monthly basis. You should have that amount in savings before you even think about paying off debt. To get that money in savings, I recommend creating and sticking to a realistic and sustainable budget. By realistic, I mean it includes spending money on stuff that you absolutely love. That's how you're able to actually stick to it. And creating a wiggle room in that budget through increasing your income or decreasing your expenses. Once you've created that wiggle room, sending that automatically to savings every single week or every single paycheck or whatever time you can commit to, you need to automatically have that money be transferred. And once you have that 1 month of expenses and savings, you're ready to move on toward paying off debt. Line all your debts up. You can pay them off in any order you want. The two most common ways to pay off your debt are smallest balance to largest balance. So that's the debt snowball. And then the other really common way is by prioritizing the highest interest rate debt, paying that one off first, and then going in order of decreasing interest rates. That's the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. I always recommend paying off high interest debt like credit card debt first, but at the end of the day, if it's more motivating for you to pay off your smallest balance, do that. The only wrong way to pay off your debt is to not do it. So just pick one and start. Pay minimum payments on all of them, but put any extra money you can toward just one debt. Then once that one is paid off, you can take the minimum payment that you aren't paying on that debt anymore and add it to the next one, and keep on doing that over and over until they're all paid off. Once your debt is paid off, so many people let up on the gas and think that their hard work is done, and then they go back to spending maybe the way that they used to, and they end up more in debt. You need to make it your number one priority to build up your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of expenses. This is super important, and so many people skip it, and it's the reason that people pay off debt and go back into debt and pay off debt and go back into debt. But if you really prioritize building up that emergency savings, it's going to prevent you from needing to put unexpected stuff on a credit card, and then that money in your emergency fund can just sit in a high yield savings account and wait for you to need it. If I wanted to pay off all my
3 things I did to pay off over $120,000 of student loan debt in 6 years. It wasn't until I committed to changing my behavior and changing my life that I was able to start making progress on my debt, and today I'm debt-free. And really, there's no better feeling, and I want that for you too. So here's what I did to get started. Number 1 was to have a why. Essentially got really pissed off with myself. I had this sort of rock bottom moment where I ended up buying a pair of boots that cost more than my rent at the time, and I knew I couldn't afford them, but I kept them anyway. And it was kind of a moment of self-sabotage that really set me over the edge and made me realize that I was going to be owning a whole lot of nice things with nothing else to show for it. I was constantly stressing about money and then soothing that stress by buying more stuff. And I realized because of my spending habits, there were a lot of things that I wasn't going to be able to do. Because the thing is, I made good money, but I had no idea on how to keep it. And I had to come to terms with the fact that a lot of the mistakes I made were my own choice, and I also had the power to change that. Essentially, you have to get to the point where the pain of where you are is worse than the pain it will take to get out of it. The next thing I did was figure out exactly where my money was going. I was always too scared to look at my bank account. I avoided looking at my credit cards, and I especially avoided looking at my student loan balance. So I went back and looked at my spending from the last 3 to 6 months, and I also pulled out all of my statements to see exactly how much my minimum payments were, what my interest rates were, all of that stuff. And the thing about doing this is that the numbers are not going to lie. Not only is this going to give you knowledge of exactly where your money goes and how much, and so you can make cuts and sacrifices temporarily to free up that cash and put it down on your debt. Finally, I started learning about money. I always thought that money wasn't for me and that was like for smart people or people who had their shit together. But no matter who you are, how much you make, I think it's so important to teach yourself about money. So I started listening to podcasts, I watched YouTube videos, I surrounded myself with people who talked about money, with people who were talking about getting out of debt, saving, investing, and living out their financial dreams, because who you surround yourself with, both physically and on the internet, matters.
I did when I graduated and got my first big girl job was get myself into about £4,500 to £5,000 worth of credit card debt, and also keep myself in my overdraft for about 1.5 to 2 years consistently. Now I managed to pay this all off and get myself out of my overdraft permanently thanks to lockdown, so that was how it was slightly a blessing for me, but it happened so quickly, and there are some habits that I have now that have permanently kept me out of ever being in that situation again, and I wanted to share them with you. The number one thing I knew I consciously did, was stick my head in the sand every time it came to checking my bank account or checking payments. I wouldn't even check how much I'd been paid. I would literally wait for the text message that told me I was in my overdraft to come, and I knew that text message was coming every time it came. And the one big benefit to actually checking your bank account now, and it's something I do as part of my budgeting process in the present day, is it just gives you a bit of it's like checking your compass just to see where you're at and see what you have to play around with. It also puts your feet back on the ground. Like, by not checking my bank account, I was lying to myself about how bad my situation was every single day. Another habit / rule that I have now is that I spend money how I want to actually spend money. When I graduated and got myself into this debt, the debt was largely driven by buying stuff to fit in with people around me, and also buying spending money at social events and on a lifestyle that was a lifestyle to impress the people around me as well. A few years on and out of credit card debt, I know what kind of lifestyle I want for myself, and I know what kind of lifestyle I want for myself in the future, and so I spend money according to that, not according to who's around me at any given time. And I got to this stage from during a period of introspection and just figuring out what I want, which I was really lucky to have to think about that during lockdown and COVID. I had the time to think about that for myself. Another thing I do that has permanently kept me out of credit card debt and also really keeps me in my place with overspending is checking when, if I want to buy something, really thinking about whether I need to buy it now. So it's not even oh, do I need this or do I want it? I go another level further and I think, do I actually need this thing right here, right now? And the reason this helps so much is because it stops me from that restrictive feeling of feeling I can't buy something. It's just more I don't need this in November 2023, but maybe I can buy it in May 2024. For example, with Black Friday, there are so many things that were on offer that I could have easily bought that were on my wish list or on my list of things I needed. But did I need them right here, right now? Probably not. Because buying something right here, right now is going to put me in a situation where I have less money than anticipated for my upcoming costs or my upcoming month. So those are the 3 things that have majorly helped me to stay out of credit card debts: checking my bank account balance more often as part of a more holistic money routine that I have for myself now to make sure I don't end up in such a state as before, spending according to my own lifestyle and what I want to spend on, not spending for the people around me at that given moment in time, and also just thinking about when I actually want to purchase things. And it's not a case of restricting my spending and stopping myself from spending completely. It's more of a, does this need to happen in the present time, or can it happen in a couple months time or a couple weeks time?
So irresponsible with money. I racked up $10,000 in credit card debt, and I was paying $200 a month just in interest, and I managed to get myself out of that, and I'm going to tell you how.
First, you're gonna have to put a fucking mirror in front of you, because guess who the problem is? As my idol eloquently says, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me. So you're gonna have to do a lot of self-reflection and looking at all of your expenses and do an inventory of what you're spending it on, because chances are there are some things that aren't adding up. So I was spending like $500 on just eating out alone. And on top of that, I also was an alcoholic. And I'm not saying that lightly, because yes, I was addicted to alcohol. I was spending close to $200 to $300 just on drinks a month alone. So I had to go look at my bank account statements and backtrack on everything that I was spending on. This is going to give you a good look on where your money is going to. Then I started paying attention to what I was listening to and what I was consuming. Instead of listening to music, I would listen to podcasts about finances. Instead of reading fantasy novels, I would read books on finances. And not like the boring kind, because I'm not good with numbers, but go read I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. If you have to read one book, that will teach you how to fix your shit. Because after I paid off all my credit card, I can now put that extra $200 that I was spending in interest alone into my investment account. And I've set up automatic installments into my investment account, so now it's earning me money. So make your money work for you. Another thing that I'm doing is investing my money into courses, into things that will make me even more money. Because if you're just working and putting all your money into savings account, it's not working for you. Actually, the value is declining because of inflation. So I've invested in therapists, coaches, mentors, and courses, and that's helping me with my mindset and also learning high income skills. If you're feeling stuck, know that you are one decision away from changing your life.
That is it for today. I appreciate you guys watching the video, and like, comment, and subscribe down below, and see you in the next video.